Another day, another Jimmy Butler report, as it could be likely that the Warriors are going to target Jimmy Butler in a trade before the NBA trade deadline in order to create a pairing between these two NBA stars. And we should not be surprised by this, but because of the report yesterday from Shams Charania about the Heat being willing to listen to offers and are open to listening to offers, and the three teams that could have interest in Jimmy Butler, but also interest Jimmy Butler, the player, are the Houston Rockets, the Dallas Mavericks, and the Golden State Warriors. And I think these three teams are interesting to me because I've seen many people talk about it on social media, and I do agree. The best chance for Jimmy Butler to win a ring is with the Dallas Mavericks. But the best trade for the Miami Heat is probably the Houston Rockets. But the most likely trade, if there were to be a Jimmy Butler deal, would probably be with the Golden State Warriors. We'll discuss all of that on today's show. But make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you are having your notifications turned on. There could be a lot of Jimmy Butler rumors as well as other things happening around the Miami Heat, and we will have you covered. Join the 15,000 and change subscribers, turning those notifications on as well. Make sure you click all, not just personalized, so you never miss a video we put out. All right, the reason why we're talking about the Warriors today is because of this man right here, Brian Windhorst, who went on ESPN this morning, Get Up, and said specifically that the Warriors are going to target Jimmy Butler before the trade deadline in early February. And this makes sense to me. And when you talk about it from the Heat's perspective, I will prefer the Houston Rockets in a trade. Why? Because they have more tradable first-round picks, so they're more flexible, and there is a better collection of young assets in Houston that would help the Heat get a better package in return. But when you think about what makes sense for Jimmy Butler, what makes sense for other teams in the NBA, I think the Golden State Warriors make a ton of sense here. The Warriors are fifth in the Western Conference standings right now. Shout out to Melo. They're blocking the record for the Golden State Warriors. It's 14-9, fun fact. But they're trying to compete for an NBA title. And with Stephen Curry continuing to be up there in age, it only makes more and more sense for the Warriors to push their chips to the table and go all in on the last 2 or 3 years with Steph Curry. I've said this on our NBA Now by Chat Sports videos on our main channel, is that it makes the most sense, and it is absolutely necessary for Jimmy Butler or for Golden State to try to get a player for Stephen Curry. I like Draymond Green. I like some of their young players in Golden State, but they can't win a championship with their current collective of players on that roster. They need another star guy to take the burden off of Steph Curry, and maybe Jimmy Butler is that player. Jimmy Butler wasn't the only one named, though, Brian Windhorst in that get-up kind of segment. The top trade targets for the Warriors, according to Windy, are LeBron James and Jimmy Butler. Now, LeBron James is an intriguing name, but I don't think he ultimately gets dealt away from the Los Angeles Lakers. Jimmy Butler very well may. So if you're asking me the most likelihood of one of these two guys being on the move from their current teams, I would say it's probably Jimmy. But I would also like to point out, if the Warriors could add one player, it probably would be LeBron, and Steph Curry would definitely choose LeBron James as his running mate and over Jimmy Butler. Before we get into what a trade may look like with Golden State, do you like the Warriors as a trade partner for the Miami Heat? Type Y for yes or type N for no. It's today's pinned comment, so if you get hit with a YouTube ad break, let it play. Scroll down and answer today's question. I'm going to say this a lot probably over the next 2 months as we potentially have more Jimmy Butler trade rumors to talk about. The Warriors are not my first choice, but I do like them as a trade partner. They don't have as good of assets as the Houston Rockets or draft picks, who are my number one choice, but they do have decent enough assets. And the thing that you'd have to look at here is their young players plus draft picks. They have 2 tradable first-round picks, which is probably the most you would be able to get in return for Jimmy Butler anyway, and it's not going to be too much because of his age and his contract situation. And then when you think about what they have at the young players' disposal as well. Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, Moses Moody. Andrew Wiggins is on here because he'd have to be included due to the fact that his salary is the largest they have that it could be traded, $26 million. And so when you think about what the Warriors have in assets, this is what I came up with for a Heat trade idea. I think the one young player you get is Kuminga. I'd rather have him over Podziemski personally. Andrew Wiggins because of salary, Gary Payton because of salary, Kevon Looney because of salary. And the fun thing is about Gary Payton, Kevon Looney, both of those guys are on one-year deals, $7-8 million. So that's $15-16 million coming off the books if you were to make this trade. And I also have one unprotected first-round pick in 2026, plus a lottery protected 2028 first-round pick coming back to Miami for Jimmy Butler and Josh Richardson. Richardson goes to them to replace the Gary Payton in the backcourt, but also to help match salary and make this perfect. And I know a lot of people might be upset by this trade, but I need you to mellow out. Because if you really think of a Jimmy Butler trade, you're probably going to be not happy with whatever the return is, but I do think this is a good return. And by the way, on Mellow, love Mellow, one of my favorite drinks. If you want more information on Mellow Seltzer, hit me up on Twitter at Nic_Rohloff. But the reason why I am a decent fan of this return is because I am a fan of the young player you'd get in return, a.k.a. Jonathan Kuminga. He is one of the younger players in the NBA. He is someone who was drafted in the top 10 of the NBA draft just 2 or 3 seasons ago, and he has continued to improve year after year after year. Now, one might say he actually is taking a little bit of a step back this season after having a pretty good year last year. I might actually agree with that, but he is only 22 years old. His just turned 22, by the way, in October, so he is continuing to be on the younger side of things as he's going to hit free agency coming up. You'd like to have him take that next step from last year because he had that breakout, 16 points per game, shot 32% from 3. But you wanted to see that step forward this season where he shot 36% from 3, averaged close to 20 points per game. He has failed to do so, but there's a lot of reasons why I like Kuminga, more than the negatives. Why do I like JK? It's because he's an unbelievable athlete. He would be the best athlete on the Miami Heat without a question if he joined this roster. He can be a lockdown defender, and there is room to grow offensively because he is so young, and there's a lot of time for him. Like the fact that he is in his 4th season in the NBA, and he's only 22, is kind of insane to me. Like Jaime Jaquez Jr. is in year 2, and Jaquez is older than Jonathan Kuminga. So when you think about a young core, Kuminga's there, and he's played already 4 seasons in the NBA. But I talk about his defense. He would be so fun. He's 6'7" with a really long wingspan. He can play the 3. He can play the small ball 4. Kuminga had this season has 105.1 defensive rating. That is 32nd in the NBA for NBA players that play 20-plus minutes per game. So he's a top 50 defender in the NBA. It's because of that wingspan. It's because of that athleticism. He's able to move side to side. And I've talked to some people here at Chat Sports, and they don't love sometimes the effort he has defensively, but I truly believe you get him in the Heat culture, the Heat system, you would get a better version of Kuminga, as the Heat usually do bring out the best in their players. Very rarely do you see a player go from here or go down here after joining the Miami Heat. And the reason why there's a concern on Kuminga, it's because of his offense. It's not his defense. It's not his athleticism. But it's because of the struggles he has offensively at times and how inefficient he actually is. But before we get into those deficiencies, let me know, be the GM, would you want Jonathan Kuminga on the Miami Heat if you were to trade Jimmy Butler? Type W for want or type F for nah. Let me know if you guys want Kuminga. This is his shot chart in the 24-25 season. It has been an interesting one. He has taken the selection of most players in the NBA where it's either at the rim, in the paint, or beyond the arc. And I think that takes away a little bit from his strength, which was that 10 to 15-foot pull-up mid-range jumper. But you'd see he's pretty solid finishing around the restricted area, which is something Miami has always struggled with. He's average to below average from beyond the arc. And what is actually a little bit concerning to me is that he struggles in that 5 to 9-foot range, outside the restricted area, but in between the free throw line. And when you look at the advanced shooting numbers, you see it, less than 10 feet. It's where the most of his shots come in. He's an attacker. He's a driver of the basketball. Shoots 57.6%. Shoots 60% inside the restricted area, which is 1% above league average this season. His pull-up midi, though, something that he did really well in 23-24, has taken a dip this season, only shooting 31.9%. That is very bad. You see the pull-up three numbers as well, off the dribble, 21%, just abysmal. And his catch-and-shoot numbers, which are always going to be better, but the fact that he's shooting below league average on normal three-point shooting, just on catch-and-shoots at 33.9%, it's not good. And I want to dumb it down for you. For some of the people that might not understand what the shot chart profile looks like, and then you include the advanced numbers, Kuminga is a slightly above average finisher at the rim. You are not going to be concerned with him missing too many layups when attacking in transition, when attacking in the half court. But he is average or below average everywhere else in terms of shooting beyond the arc. The only spot where he's above average from this season is the left wing. He's shooting about 40% from there. League average is about 36, 37%. But everywhere else on the floor, it's average or below average. So he has struggled offensively for sure if it's not in the left wing three or at the restricted area. But another reason why some fans might be concerned about adding Kuminga as the main headliner coming back for a Butler trade is that you also have to pay him. He is entering free agency this upcoming offseason. Now, it is restricted free agency, so you would have the ability to match any contract if you did trade for him at the deadline. And this is where things stood before the season, because there was a lot of buzz between him and Golden State getting a contract extension done. It didn't happen. And the reason for that is at least according to Anthony Slater and many other people out there reporting on the situation, Jonathan Kuminga was eligible for a 5-year, $220 million max extension. That's the rookie scale value, and he did not want that. It's a good thing because he doesn't deserve it. Kuminga wanted close to $35 million in annual average salary, where that's a 3-year, $105 million deal. Whether that's 120, I don't know. But either way, he wanted about $35 million a season. The Warriors were not willing to go above $30 million per season, which is why there is no contract extension in place for Kuminga and the Golden State Warriors. And I actually think I side with Golden State here. Kuminga's a good young player coming off a career year, but after he has kind of went downhill and stayed at least the same through the first 25 games of the season, the Warriors seem to be the right here to err on the side of caution. And I think a contract for Kuminga is closer to $32 million per season rather than the 35 he originally wanted. And before we sign out of this show, I did want to revisit this trade because there's a lot of other moving parts in this deal outside of just acquiring Jonathan Kuminga. You get Gary Payton and Kevin Looney, who are on 1-year expiring contracts. Like I mentioned, it'd be nice to have that $16 million coming off the books if you're Miami, because that would allow you to sign a different free agent, or maybe you allot that money to extend Jonathan Kuminga. And obviously his contract would technically come off the books as well. The one thing is that you have a 3-year deal with Andrew Wiggins, who's getting paid $26 million a season. And if you traded for Wiggins at the deadline, I'd probably try to trade him in the offseason as well and move off of that salary. But you have to have him included here for salary purposes. And because you have to keep on to that Wiggins contract and hypothetical, and you're not really having Kuminga long-term either because he's entering free agency, that's the reason why you're able to get 2 first-round picks in this trade, in my opinion. And that is kind of where we stand here. This is the trade I would accept from Golden State if I was Miami and you wanted to move off of Jimmy Butler. Unclear if they actually do. All right, that will do it for today's show. Like I mentioned off the top, make sure you are subscribed to the show. We are going to drop daily content as well as having a watch party. They're back on Thursday against the Toronto Raptors, so make sure you're subscribed and make sure you have notifications turned on.